Chapter 1. Lingji lies on his bed staring at the ceiling when his phone rings loudly, breaking the quiet morning. He sees Bella's name and answers immediately. Her voice sounds playful but upset as she tells Edward he needs to wake up because it's very late. This makes him jump up, completely awake. Bella's voice always wakes him from the deepest sleep, making his heart beat faster. He smiles and sits back against his bed, feeling excited. Edward apologizes, saying he forgot the time, his voice full of love. The friends talk about their daily lives, sharing jokes only they understand and discussing their last trip together. Every word strengthens their friendship and he feels warm and happy from their closeness. After talking easily for some time, Lingji gets an inspired idea. He waits a moment, then asks if she can help him with something. Edward tells Bella he needs her help, his eyes playful. Before explaining what he wants, she says yes immediately, surprising Edward since he hasn't told her what he actually wants yet. Lingji thanks his special friend, telling her how nice she is and how much he loves her. Suddenly, his face shows complete fear as Bella starts screaming loudly. Edward jumps from his bed, face covered in cold sweat. He realizes everything was just another bad dream that keeps bothering his soul and mind. After recovering from the scare, he walks outside where a chained zombie sits. He still cannot control this zombie properly when he stops paying attention. Edward closes his eyes and uses his powers to make a mental connection and control the walking dead creature. Edward's goal is reaching Bella's house at the end of the street, surrounded by brain-eating zombies. A loud crash from a nearby building makes all zombies chase toward the sound. Lingji knows this is his perfect chance. He runs in the opposite direction with his controlled zombie. Looking through the window, he sees two living people calling for help while zombies eat them alive. Edward feels surprised, realizing he doesn't feel anything watching these men get eaten. He doesn't care about them at all. Lingji says his main goal is finding Bella. He tells his zombie to search around her house. Using the zombie's eyes, Edward notices a car accident and wonders if anyone is alive in the crashed cars. He tells the zombie to keep moving, and when he sees a red bus from the accident, he remembers Bella was riding that bus. He decides to check if her body might be inside. Edward sees a tall, thin girl in a blood-covered dress holding a zombie's head. She has glowing red eyes and notices him immediately. When she sees him, she runs to attack. Chapter 2. The girl moves so fast Edward cannot react. She strikes like lightning, pushing her hand through his controlled puppet. Lingji cannot believe his eyes. His feelings tell him that Bella standing before him is also infected with the zombie virus. Edward knows he cannot let her kill his zombie puppet or she'll run away. He decides to take control of her body and mind. Edward uses his power, and his invisible spirit moves toward his friend's soul. Bella's soul looks weak and defenseless but gentle in the surrounding emptiness. When he tries controlling her, a loud energy explosion pushes Edward away, stopping his plan. The girl becomes angry and throws the zombie she's holding onto the ground. Lingji understands she's fighting his control. If he cannot control her mind, she'll stay a zombie forever. Edward becomes more determined. Saving Bella is one of his most important jobs in this chaos. When he makes another attempt, his gemmal soul power finally touches the fragile girl's mind. Her body becomes calm and peaceful. Lingji breathes with relief as his attempts finally work. Edward tells her to move toward him, but she ignores his request. Instead, she stops and takes a strange red crystal from the zombie's head. Lingji doesn't understand when his friend puts this red crystal in her mouth. Lingji's body feels a strange sensation. Understanding this crystal restores his friend's strength and health. Chapter 3. When Bella finally reaches Edward, she stands motionless, looking directly into his eyes as if seeking answers. Edward smells a sweet scent from her, like spring flowers. Everything becomes quiet, feeling like only they exist in that moment, sharing worry and wanting closeness. Edward doesn't get time to understand why their connection suddenly stops working when Bella pushes him to the ground. As their spiritual connection weakens, she attacks him with a strong urge to hurt. Just before she hits him, Lingji takes control again and tells Edward they need somewhere safer to clean her up. After walking, they reach a clothing store surrounded by zombies. Edward uses his powers to feel that Bella wants to kill these walking dead. He remembers the red crystals in zombie heads and decides to help his friend get more crystals. Bella quickly runs at a zombie without waiting and hits it so hard it crashes down. Edward understands that without help soon, his friend might lose control completely. He must find something to cure her quickly. Lingji fights zombies with crazy energy while helping Bella. The two work together violently, defeating many creatures in minutes. Lingji breathes heavily and wipes sweat after the fight, letting his friend collect and eat crystals. Edward sees that eating these makes her stronger, and importantly, when Bella gets angry, it makes him stronger too. Inside the store, Lingji looks through clothes, picking outfits for his friend while smiling. They go to the bathroom to wash blood and dirt off Bella and throw away her torn dress. Edward carefully removes her dirty clothes and finishes washing and dressing her. Chapter 4. They sit together to rest and think about their next move. While Edward braids his friend's hair, he hears her stomach making hungry noises and realizes she needs those red crystals constantly to keep functioning. He decides to go hunting with Bella so she can eat what she needs and practice keeping their connection strong. After walking around, Edward suddenly becomes unconscious for unknown reasons, so Lingji finds safety in a nearby house. The next morning, when the sun rises, the girl wakes up and Edward greets her, having stayed awake all night watching over her. Looking at his friend, he sees her eyes look different now, with more energy and life. Edward thinks this change happens because eating other creatures like herself makes her stronger over time. Edward realizes his first plan to hide with Bella in the hills has problems, and he'll probably get hurt if she becomes too hungry and cannot control herself. They'll have to make their home in the city instead. Looking at his dull kitchen knife, he remembers Anna's sword store nearby, well known for handmade weapons. Looking at Bella, he knows he must protect her with all his strength. After gathering important things, they walk toward the store to find a good weapon. Meanwhile, Anna sits with her feet on a table while a man watches outside with binoculars. He tells Anna he saw two people walking toward her store. After looking outside, he says they should warn these people about zombies inside the store, but Anna tells him making noise will only bring more zombies. While this happens, Edward and Bella enter the store, approaching the door marked Workshop. Suddenly, a loud crash breaks the quiet atmosphere, echoing throughout the room. The noise sounds violent, like wood breaking and metal bending. Before they understand what's happening, an angry zombie breaks through the door behind them, his rotting face showing anger while its eyes look empty and hungry. Chapter 5. When the creature attacks again, Edward moves quickly aside, using his kitchen knife to cut off the zombie's hand, then does a spinning kick, sending the zombie flying toward the wall. Moving like lightning, he jumps on the fallen creature, puts the knife behind its head, and prepares to push the blade into the vital part. Suddenly, the stronger zombie twists its leg and kicks Edward away. When Edward sees that Edward cannot win alone, Bella appears behind the zombie and uses a powerful hit to make a hole through its body. This zombie is clearly much stronger than regular Walking Dead and even badly hurt. It manages to react and fight back. Having more people and understanding this is the right time for the final attack, Lingji stabs the unsuspecting zombie from behind, swinging hard and pushing his knife directly into the stronger zombie's head, making it fall while roaring angrily. Edward realizes this improved zombie killed many people here. For a second, he thinks if there are creatures like this, maybe there are other beings much more scary and dangerous. He hears Bella's footsteps and turns to make sure everything's okay with her. The girl takes the crystal from the zombie's head and prepares to eat it, but Edward stops her. Lingji examines this green crystal closely, thinking its different color and the creature that carried it might mean stronger sickness inside. He knows they need rest because the same thing might happen again, and they'll both become unconscious like before. After giving Bella the crystal to hold, remembering why they came originally, he finds a good weapon among the available swords. Looking at the glass cases, he realizes Anna's sword store deserves its reputation because the weapon quality and cost are amazing. While walking through the main room, Edward becomes worried by a quiet sound from under a floor tile. Under this tile might be a secret hiding place. When he lifts the floor section, he sees a box with special items inside. After picking up the dagger in the box, he realizes someone hid it purposely and decides to take it as his weapon. With happy expressions, they both leave the store, glad they remained safe and got such a valuable prize. Anna watches through binoculars. Horrified, they defeated that zombie and took her special dagger. She feels angry because she's been waiting for the right moment to sneak inside and take her favorite dagger. Anna's friend tries stopping her, saying they're clearly unusual people for killing a stronger zombie, but she still plans to catch up and take the dagger back. The man suggests giving up and going to a blacksmith they know to see if other people are alive there. Anna agrees, saying her cousin also received something special from their grandfather. Her weapon-making skill may not be terrible, and they should go there instead. Finally, she makes a rude gesture and curses whoever took her favorite dagger. Meanwhile, Lingji thinks that he and Bella need more caution than ever because their situation remains full of mysteries. After reaching their planned hiding place, he treats the front door with cleaning chemical to remove any smell and not attract zombies. After cleaning completely, he locks it with a strong metal bolt. People say this hiding method works well only where zombie numbers remain small and manageable. Understanding they're somewhat safe now, he decides to give Bella the green crystal from the stronger zombie they defeated. After putting the mysterious green crystal in Bella's mouth, she immediately swallows it without doubt. Chapter 6. At that second, sharp, unexpected pain arises in Edward's chest, plunging him into shock. From surprise, he falls to his knees, realizing he'll lose consciousness soon. By first impressions, more than 20 hours pass since our heroes lost consciousness. Lingji finds strength to sit and lean on the chest of drawers behind him, not understanding what happened or how long he was passed out. Looking around the room, he realizes Bella isn't around and is most likely out of control. Testing his superpowers, he feels the connection between him and Bella is still active and leads somewhere outside. Using his power, he follows the connection and sees her going downstairs. Not understanding how she moves on her own without his order, he follows her down and sees Bella standing at the window, her face illuminated by bright, warming sun rays. Edward looks at his QB with incredible delight, slight hope in his eyes that she's finally recovered. He runs up and hugs her tightly from behind, saying he's immensely glad her condition is gradually improving. He wonders if the situation's shock made him wonder if his QB regained her memory. He looks into her eyes, holding her tender neck, saying everything will be fine because now she has emotional expression and can move independently. He orders her to follow because she'll probably return to normal life if they continue evolving and feeding her crystals. The two set out on city streets infested with huge zombie numbers. Edward notices Bella has evolved much and become much stronger. While the girl alone deals with zombie hordes, he sees that in her eyes they're inferior creatures who don't deserve the slightest right to life. Looking at his cutie, Edward wonders how she'll react when they face other survivors. He wipes dirt and bruises from her face, knowing he'll do his best to prevent her from attacking other people using his control abilities. At the same moment, he hears loud noises and screams behind him, suggesting other survivors. He looks around and sees a guy and girl in the distance, surrounded by huge numbers of corpse eaters, walking straight toward them. He notices how a girl armed with a beautiful katana deals with the nearest attacking zombie in the blink of an eye. This girl, with long black hair and a red headband with white flowers, turns to her friend and says they should go back to the store. They change course, turning toward the building behind them and making their way deeper into the store. Edward, observing the situation from afar while remaining unnoticed, understands this girl is clearly unusual. Not only is she skilled in combat, but she's also not afraid of zombies. Certain confidence emanates from her body, and if she were ordinary, she would have already turned pale and trembled with fear. He looks at Bella and suggests she may also be a person with unusual abilities, and now isn't the right time to meet her. Edward turns around, deciding to leave and not get involved in conflicts because it could harm him and his cutie. A green-haired guy, clearly the katana girl's friend, notices Lingji and calls out asking for help. Edward is unhappy with the current situation because his screams attracted nearby zombie attention. He decides there's no way out anyway, and he needs to help these two because if this girl really has abilities, she can discover Bella's true essence. He snatches from its sheath the dagger they recently got from the sword store and intends to defend against attacking zombies. Chapter 7. Meanwhile, the katana girl tells her friend not to scream because he attracts more corpse-eater hordes. The green-haired guy points out he noticed other survivors who might help them. The girl with black hair and red headband turns around and looks outside the store at our protagonist dealing with corpse-eaters. Edward manages to fight easily because after Bella's evolution, his abilities improved, and now he can control 3 zombies simultaneously. He uses his powers to take control of nearby zombies and order them to simply step aside without attempting to attack, treating them like pathetic dolls. The green-haired guy sees Lingji fighting coolly and tells the katana girl, whose name is Shanana, to pay attention. The beautiful, slender girl with a katana, whose name is Shana, says this doesn't concern her at all. The green-haired guy and his QB run toward our protagonist, hoping he'll help them eliminate the zombie crowd chasing them. As he runs past them, he grabs Edward's hand, telling him to follow and he'll lead them to safety. Together, they break away from the mindless pursuing creatures and take refuge in a nearby quiet alley. Shanana tries calmly analyzing the situation, saying they only got rid of them temporarily. Her green-haired friend tries catching his breath and through sighs, thanks our hero for not leaving them to die. He looks at Bella, saying they're very cool together because they fought bravely, ran well, and apparently have the same good stamina. Shanana immediately objects for a friend, telling him not to address her as if she belonged to him, saying they were just classmates. The green-haired guy again thanks our heroes for their help, inviting them to their shelter to rest because they have plenty of beer. Edward thanks them but refuses, realizing that although his QB looks normal, it would be better to minimize contact with other survivors. He again tries persuading Edward to go with them, to which Shanana replies that if they don't want to go, there's no need to force them. A moment later, the girl notices Edward's dagger sticking out unsheathed and tries to snatch it, but misses as he reacts and returns it. Shauna falls face down and her friend, confused, asks what came over her and why she behaves this way in front of other people. Dissatisfaction is clearly visible on the katana girl's face. She asks where Lingji got this dagger, receiving the answer that it doesn't concern her. She continues insisting without wild aggression. She again asks where he got this weapon, asking him to tell her everything in detail. Edward replies he took it from a sword store, causing Shauna wild surprise and misunderstanding. Sitting on her knees, the girl examines the protagonist's dagger, asking whether any survivors inside the store survived or whether they're all dead. Edward looks away, asking Shanana to get up from her knees and stop staring at him from the waist down. She immediately turns her gaze to Bella, saying he has nothing to worry about because his cutie doesn't mind at all. Shanana immediately runs up to Bella, hugging her hand and pressing her whole body against her, saying such a beautiful girl obviously won't be jealous. At this second, the thought of tearing the victim standing next to her into pieces flashes through Bella's head, but Edward manages to order her not to move using his strength. Edward warns that his cutie cannot speak, to which Shanana expresses regret that such a beauty turned out completely mute and asks for forgiveness. She holds Bella's hand, apologizing again, saying she doesn't look very good and should rest in their hideout. She also looks at Edward, saying she liked him too and they should follow her, rest well, and drink some beer. They grab their hands and begin dragging them along, saying they haven't seen survivors for a long time and have something to chat about. Chapter 8. Miss Gribble notices Bella and Edward, asking how they managed to meet 2 more survivors. They go inside the apartment with several more people, and the green-haired guy begins telling what things they managed to bring after today's hunt. Edward assesses the situation and notices a huge number of people in their apartment, clearly not without reason. The green-haired guy remembers his new acquaintances and introduces Edward and Bella to everyone in the apartment. He grabs Ling Ji by the shoulder, saying that even though they've known each other so long, he still doesn't know his name, receiving the answer that his name is Edward and his cutie is Bella. He also asks not to ask her too many questions since she doesn't know how to talk. The green-haired guy notifies everyone that Edward helped them out a lot, so they decided to invite him here for lunch together. One guy lying on the sofa notices how could he help them after all. Shanna can handle it very well herself. One girl asks the guy lying on the couch, whose name is Jacob, not to be so rude, and he makes the situation seem like they just want to eat for free and she shouldn't shield them. The green-haired guy also stands up for Edward, saying they know practically nothing about him, and he helped them out a lot. Jacob tells his friend Weirdo not to be so kind because there's only enough food and water, and they have nothing to feed strangers. Weirdo turns towards Shanana, asking her to support him and prove him wrong. Lingji assumes they just want to laugh at him, and he's not interested in quarreling with such petty people who like driving strangers away. He waves his hand, turns around, and is about to leave, saying he doesn't want to become a parasite, and it's better for him to leave. Jacob immediately jumps up, saying he won't be able to feed his cutie, and this is just window dressing to present himself as a real man. He shouldn't behave so arrogantly. At the same second, Edward makes a sharp jerk toward the offender, clearly not liking what he said. He grabs Jacob by the clothes, lifting him up and pinning him against the wall. Jacob immediately decides to issue another insult toward his cutie, for which Edward instantly slaps him in the face with his right hand. Lingji points his finger at him, saying this is called a well-deserved slap, and if he says one more word about his cutie, he'll give him another one. Jacob immediately tries finding help in Shauna's eyes, who asks Edward to let him go, saying he already hit him and there's no need to quarrel. The offender clearly doesn't want to apologize and admit responsibility for his words, so he receives another slap with the left side of his palm. Shauna orders her friend to apologize, saying his dirty mouth is to blame and he should think better about what he says. Jacob forcefully asks for forgiveness, thinking only that he did all this to save food, which they already have little of considering they're friends. Weirdo immediately runs up to Ling Ji, also asking for forgiveness because he didn't imagine something like this could happen. Edward decides to clarify who all these people are and why they count so much on Weirdo and Shanana getting food for them in return, receiving that they're all classmates from the same boarding school. Weirdo tries explaining that Jacob has a very rich family, which is why he has such a bad temper, to which Edward waves his hand and says he wants nothing to do with him. Shauna decides to stop them, saying the sky is getting dark and they better stay here for the night because zombies are much more dangerous at night. She grabs his hand at the last moment, squeezing it tightly and with the last of her strength, praying they stay and not leave. She looks into Edward's eyes, saying he's very strong and experienced in fighting the infected, and they need his help. Chapter 9. He turns to her and, with an arrogant look, says he refuses such an offer. Shanana isn't going to let Edward go just like that and continues holding his hand despite his displeasure. The girl looks at Ling Ji with a pitiful look, saying they're all survivors and need to stick together and help each other. Ling Ji again expresses dissatisfaction while looking at Jacob and says he'll never help if it has to do with this person. He glances at Shauna's classmates present, saying feeding these mediocrities is her personal choice and he's not going to help her with this. The girl tries catching him, saying he'll agree to help them if it's not connected with Jacob, and smiles maliciously. Shauna says they're students from 3rd high school, to which Edward replies this is a very prestigious boarding school, and of course, he's heard about it. The girl explains that when they left their school, some classmates remained there and asks Ling Ji to help them get there. Edward looks at them with a straight face, asking what he'll get for his help, causing complete bewilderment in those around him. Weirdo is immediately disappointed in people, saying that in his opinion, in case of disaster, people should have helped each other, but the world remained incredible. Shauna says his demands are very reasonable, but it seems to her he's already received payment since he took the dagger forged by her cousin Anna. Edward looks at his dagger, wondering how a small, fragile girl, being Shauna's cousin, could forge such an amazing weapon. She explains it was their grandfather who taught them blacksmithing, and although her skills aren't that good, this dagger is still very good. After which she grabs Bella by the shoulders, suggesting they've agreed on this, which means they should stay overnight with them, and they won't have to worry about anything. Edward explains he would never leave his QB alone in the world, knowing deep down that if he leaves her with defenseless people, he'll only see mountains of corpses when he returns. Shauna notes he's a worthy man since he protects his QB so carefully. When conversations and debates end, Weirdo decides to please his classmates by telling them their new acquaintance has agreed to go to school with them. A girl with long yellow hair objects that they really should go to help them because they've been dead for a long time. Shauna sharply objects, saying they must do this because she promised to return and save them. She also notes that if it weren't for their classmates and teachers who cover their backs, they would already be in zombie stomachs. The guy with glasses decides to agree with Shauna's decision, saying that if they leave him there and don't come back, it will be very selfish. He also decides to begin dictating his terms and making plans for further development, to which Edward immediately objects. He explains that all those present have no combat skills. In addition, most of them will play into the enemy's hands because they'll become easy targets. Shaman explains to him that he doesn't have to worry about their safety because all he has to do is help them get to the school building. Slight panic and uncertainty about what awaits them begins spreading among all present classmates. The guy with glasses decides to speak again, saying that if they have a weapon, in theory, they'll be able to protect themselves. Edward orders everyone to go to bed and rest because tomorrow morning they'll have a difficult test. Shauna manages to warn him that she won't let him spend the night with other guys and his QB should stay with other classmates. Edward clearly has time to think of something, so he agrees with an arrogant smile and wishes them good rest. Walking out the door, he realizes he cannot leave his QB alone and must always keep her under control. He uses his superpowers to control Bella and see everything that happens through her eyes. Shah drags Bella by the hand, saying today she'll sleep in the same bed with her because there are no more places. Chance looks at Bella, asking why she doesn't undress before going to bed, wondering if she sleeps with her clothes on all the time. Shanana offers to undress her himself while jumping on top of her and pressing his body against hers. She offers to undress if she's shy, providing her body for undressing, and puts Bella's hand on her chest. Chapter 10. Meanwhile, Edward, being in the boys' bedroom and lying on the bed, wonders why Shah suddenly got this into her head. He understands that now it's he who controls his Kibi's body and decides to agree with his new friend's request. He takes control of Bella's body and throws Shanana onto the bed, standing on top of her, which makes her suddenly surprised, not understanding what's happening. She begins slowly undressing Shanana, causing slight embarrassment to appear on her face as well as embarrassment from everything happening. Thoughts flash through her head that even though a girl is undressing her, for some reason, she feels as if a guy is looking at her and she's incredibly ashamed. The awkwardness level begins going off scale, and Shanana decides to end this performance as soon as possible by saying they need to go to bed to rest. Edward is clearly not going to stop and then suddenly grabs her shirt, tearing it off and contemplating Shanana's naked and tender body in his thoughts. Ling Ji grins at Asana at this time and promises he'll no longer misbehave, looking at the imperturbable Bella, after which Edward orders Bella to go to bed and breaks off the connection with her, ceasing to control her body. Shanana, at that moment, covers herself with some remaining clothes and, dissatisfied, shouts at her classmates to quickly go to bed. Before going to bed, she also states that it would be very becoming for Bella to smile more often because her beauty deserves it. Shanana also expresses her thoughts that she initially imagined Edward as an abuser who forced a defenseless girl to follow him, but after hearing from him that she couldn't speak, she realized he wasn't a scumbag at all. The next morning, all classmates, including our heroes, gather on the street near the shelter and plan their hike. They discuss a plan for further action and also distribute supplies of water and food to everyone. Meanwhile, Jacob and the guy with glasses watch all this from the side, judging Edward for taking their supplies. He's clearly still unhappy about the situation where he received several slaps and wants revenge on Ling Jie. Edward decides to clarify what weapons they have for primary self-defense, with the exception of the katana that Shanana wields. They understand the only weapon of self-defense is a kitchen knife. They distribute everything they have to each classmate. Sometime later, they begin moving toward the school, simultaneously dealing with obstacles in the form of zombies. Edward understands that Shannon and Weir duo work well together, and it would be much better and easier for the two of them to survive in this chaos. Analyzing his connection with Bella, Edward realizes ordinary zombie crystals are no longer suitable for her evolution. He understands that, given the course of things, he needs more mutated or much stronger infected. Analyzing everything that happened, he realizes mutated zombies can be found in closed spaces, such as hospitals, schools, and shops. While Edward was in thought, one of his classmates was grabbed by a zombie through a street store window. He manages to break the window and through a hole in the glass drags him inside the building, plunging everyone nearby into shock. Lingji instantly understands he needs to save the poor fellow as soon as possible. He breaks into the store through a hole in the glass and sees the same guy being devoured by a zombie. He manages to take control of it, after which, with a cool, imperturbable face, he instantly cuts the insidious corpse eater into pieces. After this, Shanana immediately runs into the store, trying to figure out why everyone's panicking and what happened. Lingji explains their classmate can no longer be helped, and they need to move on because he's dead. Chapter 11. After the incident, all untampered classmates crowd around the mirror display and discuss what happened. Shanana understands she must not give in and, using her leadership qualities, orders everyone to move on. Edward notes that no matter how stupid this girl is at critical moments, she's actually quite decisive. Jacob, standing nearby at this moment, looks at Ling Ji, blaming him for everything that happened. The guy of the classes grabs him by the hand and drags him along, saying they need to go because, without their help, they'll simply be eaten. While Jacob blames Edward for everything, the guy with glasses explains that without his and Shanana's help, they'll be easy prey. He also notices that Edward is much sterner and more cold-blooded than Shanana and can force her to obey, leaving them completely alone. Jacob complains it's all Edward's fault who dared to hit him, and he simply cares about his survival and his friend's survival. His friend adjusts his glasses, asking him if it seems that the fewer people there are, the more advantage they'll have. He explains that now he depends on Shanana, and in his place, he would be smarter because he'll never win her love. He also warns Jacob against making rash decisions, saying Edward is much stronger than him. The guy who receives several slaps from Lingji bares his teeth, calling his classmate a traitor. Meanwhile, the whole group moves on, stumbling upon another zombie crowd and deciding what to do. Shanana realizes fighting such a huge pile of zombies is impractical and offers to distract them. Edward immediately decides not to send weaklings forward and offers himself as a distraction. He explains that everyone present should find a place to hide, and when zombies start chasing him, they should immediately run away. Weirduo, with tears in his eyes, puts his hand on Ling Jae's shoulder, thanking him and saying he's a real man. Edward understands perfectly well he's the only suitable candidate because if Shanana goes to distract the zombies, the chance of her returning isn't great. The girl thanks Ling Ji for such dedication, warning him and asking him to be careful. Having ordered the entire group to look for a hiding place, he, accompanied by Bella, goes to an electronics store. Having opened the door, zombies immediately begin attacking him from all sides with the desire to tear him into pieces. Using his improved abilities, he immediately manages to take control of all the zombies. Having ordered the controlled zombies not to move, he begins moving along the display cases, collecting mobile phones from the shelves. After some time, he constructs a necklace from telephones and hangs one on each zombie he's taken control of. He checks whether the phones work as he intended and also sets maximum volume on each one, preparing his insidious plan. He opens the store door and orders the zombies to run as fast as they can in the opposite direction from the shelter where their friends are located. Chapter 12. As soon as the zombies start running, he uses his mobile phone to play one of his favorite songs at full volume. The sound attracts a huge crowd of corpse eaters that follows the three puppets. All present survivors in the shelter hear the music emanating nearby. Watching everything, Shanana accuses Ling Ji of acting like a complete fool and states that his plan is no worse than a 5-year-old child's idea. She understands this is the moment he was talking about and immediately orders everyone to get down and run. The classmates begin to leave the shelter walls in formation and move in the opposite direction. Meanwhile, zombies continue chasing the Three Stooges, attracted by the music. While distracted, the survivors manage to catch up with Edward and Bella, saying they have little time left. Unexpectedly, someone's corpse falls from a multi-story building roof. The entire crowd of corpse eaters is sharply distracted by the sound and turns toward our heroes. Edward realizes they have very little time left, grabs the girls by the hands, and rushes away. Our heroes try to escape the horde of crazy zombies pursuing them. Ling Ji convinces those present to find cover because they cannot fight these creatures in the open. Nearby, they notice a multi-story building and run inside a store with screw-type doors. The zombie crowd pursuing them begins slowly making their way through small cracks in the buildings and doors. Edward realizes they are in a hopeless situation and orders everyone to take defensive positions, destroying the mindless creatures one by one. Lingji begins defending, slowly dealing with zombies springing from every corner. Meanwhile, nearby classmates, led by Jacob, don't understand what to do. The guy with glasses supports him, saying he doesn't know what to do either because there were no orders from Shauna. Chapter 13. Zombies begin descending the stairs from upper floors to the sounds of battle, trapping our heroes in a vice. One classmate is about to scream about approaching danger when suddenly someone pushes him in the back. He turns around and sees the guy with glasses, asking him, "Michael, why are you doing this?" He falls to the ground and immediately begins being eaten by zombies, from which he can only scream for help. One nearby classmate is also attacked by another zombie, who, with mouth open, is about to bite off a tasty piece of meat. At that second, I manage to save Bella, who with lightning speed repels the attacking corpse eater. The frightened girl looks at our heroine, thanking her from the bottom of her heart, saying she now owes her life. Meanwhile, Edward, using his ability to control zombies, continues dealing with the crowd from the street. He understands his strength is almost running out because such force use exhausts his body. Lingji orders everyone to immediately retreat because if they continue, none will survive. Sounds and cries for help are heard from upper floors, and Edward orders them not to stop and think about their own survival first. Using his powers, he orders Bella to protect any classmates in danger. She manages to grab a kitchen knife from one of the defenders and begins chopping up approaching danger. After some time, he manages to fight off the significant zombie horde, leaving only mountains of corpses on the floor. Weirdo falls to the floor from exhaustion, wiping sweat from his forehead and saying they were so close to death. After all commotion is over, Shauna notices two classmates have disappeared. Weirdo remembers what he noticed during battle and saw how two guys climbed stairs to upper floors. Shauna holds a katana, saying she still has strength left and they need to rise and check if they're alive. Edward explains this isn't necessary and they're most likely dead, because if there are zombies on the first floor, then there are them on the rest. They look at cracked walls in the ceiling, from which loud screams and cries can be heard. Slight desperation clearly begins appearing in Shauna's eyes. She leans on her katana and thinks that 4 people have already died through her fault. Lingji tries calming the girl, saying that if it weren't for her help, all classmates would have been dead long ago. At that moment, a fit of rage overtakes one classmate, and he, grabbing the guy with glasses, begins saying it's all his fault. Grabbing a kitchen knife lying nearby, he puts it behind his back and is about to stab. At that second, lightning-fast reflexes allow Shauna to knock the knife from his hand and prevent murder. Weirdo also decides not to stand aside and hits his classmate in the face, asking if he's crazy. There's obvious dissatisfaction on the guy with glasses' face, and given his actions, this clearly isn't the last meanness he'll commit. Lane Ji tries explaining to his friend that weapons are intended for self-defense, not pointing at people. A classmate tries stopping the emerging conflict, saying everything is fine, and considering he isn't hurt, they shouldn't quarrel. Edward examines all survivors present, realizing losses won't end there and not everyone will reach their journey's final goal. The guy with glasses worries whether Edward saw how he set up his classmate and decides to find out why he's looking at him so intently. Lingji replies he was just thinking, and they shouldn't hesitate and move on. Meanwhile, our hero's path leads them through eerie depths of an underground supermarket, a place that once bustled with life but now lies shrouded in silence. As they approach the entrance, a chilling sight greets them. A disarrayed crowd of corpses sprawled across the floor, their lifeless forms contorted in a grim tableau. Chapter 14. This turns out to be an even larger and clearly much stronger zombie than those our heroes met. Having reached this descent underground, our heroes begin descending in a slender, well-calibrated column. Weirdo tries assessing the situation, saying that judging by the silence of local premises, there's no one here. Shauna suggests exploring this place and breaking into small groups to help each other if something happens. Edward invites Shauna to stay with everyone else while he, accompanied by Bella, looks inside the store, making his way deeper. Edward notices that after the last battle, his psyche has improved significantly, and his visual acuity has also increased. Lingji always thinks someone is watching him since they entered the underground supermarket. Lingji notices his cutie's innate reflexes are beginning to squeal very loudly, and most likely there's a very strong mutant nearby. Screams begin being heard from the store's depths, and our heroes immediately begin following sounds to check what's happening. Turning the corner, they see one classmate being eaten by the same mutated zombie, and Jacob just watches. The guy being eaten screams in unbearable pain, asking friends to help and save him. A moment later, the zombie decides to switch from one victim to the second, rushing after Jacob standing next to him. He notices Edward and Bella running toward him, asking them to help. Edward takes out his dagger, realizing that before him is a very strong and formidable enemy, and he needs extreme care. Although the mutant zombie has enormous dimensions, it's still incredibly fast and agile and almost manages to catch up with Jacob. Having overtaken him, it makes a sharp wave of its hand, causing him to quickly fly into nearby shelves, absolutely without losing concentration. With his second free hand, he swings, hoping to smear Lingji across the floor. Edward's reflexes allow him to react and dodge an attack much stronger and faster than ordinary zombies. Lingji understands he cannot hesitate and must deal with him as soon as possible before Shauna arrives. He uses his powers to loosen control over Bella, giving her complete freedom of action and ability to fight at full strength. At that moment, as if by magic, she appears behind the zombie's back and makes a powerful blow along his entire body length. Edward decides to use attack tactics from several sides, and while the zombie is distracted by his cutie, tries to strike again. Together with his cutie, they manage to inflict several targeted piercing and cutting blows, causing the zombie to bleed. Having received sufficiently large damage, the mutant continues to resist. Edward understands he must find his weak point. Using his ability, which has recently undergone slight improvements, he tries taking control of such a massive and formidable enemy, while trying to simultaneously keep Bella and another mutant zombie under control. Chapter 15. His nose begins bleeding and he spends too much energy. Still, overcoming pain and gathering all strength, he manages to make the mutant zombie not move for a few seconds. These couple seconds are enough for Bella to pierce through the giant's skull with a lightning strike and destroy him. Also, in par with the blow, she manages to remove a bright green crystal from the corpse eater's head, which clearly has incredible power. Toward the battle's end, Shauna and Wee Ardio come running to the sounds of screams and blows, clearly rushing to help. The girl's face clearly shows incredible shock from what she saw, because she had never seen anything like this. Edward and Bella are standing near the lifeless body of a mutant zombie who appears several times larger than both of them, wiping blood from his face. Lingji answers Shauna's question that he's fine and there's nothing to worry about. Analyzing the battle, Edward realizes his psyche has become much stronger and perhaps he'll be able to control two strong zombies at once. At this time, Weirdo notices Jacob lying in the wreckage chest, asking for help. The wounded victim looks at Edward, cursing him for the fact that he had time to save him but didn't. The same classmate, originally eaten by a zombie, is on life and death's verge and asks Shauna to help him. With tears in her eyes, the girl picks up a katana and says she cannot do otherwise, after which she ends her friend's torment. She explains she could not do otherwise because they cannot help him in any way but only prolong his suffering. Shauna is also trying to clarify whether everything is okay with our heroes, because they very quickly manage to cope with a huge mutated corpse eater. Hearing from Edward that everything is fine and she shouldn't worry, she thinks this guy is clearly hiding something from her. The sign that has been helping and bandaging Jacob tells our heroes that, in his opinion, he won't be able to go further. He says his wound's color is the same as zombies and he might transform if they leave him like that. Offering various options for solving the problem, Shauna immediately refuses the option of taking him with her. In such a situation, they shouldn't risk taking him as ballast because the rest of his classmates are already turning away from him. Edward decides not to take part in this conversation, saying these are their personal problems and he's responsible for people he doesn't know. Shauna offers to leave Jacob here for a while, and if they return and see that everything is fine with him, they'll take him back. Hearing all this, Edward realizes he may not appreciate it at all, and food and water will be wasted. They take Jacob to his safe room, leaving him some food and water, and telling him to come back when they leave school and check on him. Dissatisfaction with everything unfolding around him is clearly etched on Edward's face, the furrowed brow and tight lips betraying his inner turmoil. Deep down, he grapples with the weight of his situation, fully aware that he has no choice but to comply with demands placed upon him. As he turns to leave, a moment of clarity washes over him. He glances back at Jacob, a flicker of realization dawning in his eyes. In that instant, he acknowledges that he has brought this predicament upon himself, recognizing that his past behavior and dismissive attitude toward others have led to this moment of reckoning. Chapter 16. After some time, our heroes find themselves near the third high school building to which their path lay. Ling notes the situation looks too suspicious, and Wee Iordo reports that all zombies are most likely inside the school. In such closed places, there should be many zombies, and without food, they will mercilessly devour each other, and then it won't take long for them to mutate. Based on Bella's gut feelings, he realizes she has smelled several mutants inside the building. About to move forward, Edward stops Shauna, saying that at this point their paths diverge and he will go his way. The girl smiles sweetly at him and says that, in any case, she's grateful to both of them for their help and hopes they can meet again. Bite finally offers to give them a small part of his provisions, to which he receives polite refusal and gratitude. Ling finally says he still has some business to do with the school, and they may well see each other again. After some time moving along the deserted school building floors, the eyes begin turning red again, foreshadowing a mutated one's appearance. At the corridor's end, they notice an elevator shaft, which, judging by button indications, is still working. Bella immediately tries to react and start moving toward the elevator, but Edward manages to stop her with his strength. Without making hasty decisions, he decides to first check the elevator car by throwing an eraser lying nearby in its direction. Once on the desired floor, an incredibly loud growl and scream begin being heard from the elevator car. In an instant, the elevator car opens and an angry zombie with glowing red eyes rushes at our heroes. Lei manages to repel the attack using his weapon and stopping both attackers' hands. Using her favorite tactic, Bella tries to stab her in the back, but this mutant's speed and reflexes clearly surpass the previous ones, and he manages to dodge. This mutant's reflexes and speed clearly surpass humans, and after a successful goal, he immediately tries making a counterattack. Trying to defend himself, Edward loses his grip, causing the zombie to knock the weapon from his hands. Without being confused and maintaining concentration, Ling manages to use his powers to take control of the corpse eater for a second. Bella, without losing the slightest chance, manages to deliver a sharp blow to the back, causing the zombie to lose his right arm. The attacker clearly doesn't like this state of affairs, and he, holding the rest of his hand, begins frantically screaming at our heroes. Chapter 17. Edward manages to pick up a dagger lying nearby that he dropped, saying that now that he has lost his arm, he will become less dangerous. This time, together with his cutie, they decide not to distract the zombies from each other, and the two of them go into a frontal attack. Having received serious damage, the mutant can no longer defend himself so well and begins receiving even more injuries. The guy and the girl in love decide not to leave the enemy the slightest chance to escape or counterattack, continuing to advance and crush him with a series of blows. Edward manages to take control of the mutated zombie for another moment, giving Bella a chance to finish him off with one blow. Using her mutated body, the girl manages to slam the zombie into the floor with incredible force. Having collapsed to the ground, our heroes manage to catch their breath, realizing the battle has been won. Edward takes the crystal out of the zombie's head, realizing it looks completely different from previous ones because its owner is much stronger. Bella immediately opens her mouth, asking Edward to absorb the prey he found, to which he refuses. He puts the crystal in his jacket pocket, saying he will do it later in a safer place together with his cutie. Lane begins making his way through building floors, simultaneously clearing out all zombies in their way. After some time, the two of them manage to collect a fairly large number of both weak and stronger crystals. Looking at his cutie, Edward realizes that the more crystals she can absorb, the sooner, in his opinion, she will be able to return to her human form. All these battles, according to Ling, improve both his physical skills and his spiritual connection with Bella. Edward asks his cutie to help him get up because he's too tired from fighting. At this moment, an item of clothing in the form of a garter falls from Bella's body right in front of his face. Raising his head, Ling sees his cutie's huge breasts in front of him and feels slightly awkward. Chapter 18. Meanwhile, Shauna, accompanied by her classmates, is already very close to the place where their friends are hiding. Some classmates are talking about how their friends were without food or water all this time and most likely they're no longer alive. The girl explains she's quite ready for such an outcome, and holding her katana at the ready, says they must fulfill their promise and check. They get to the very school office in which apparently the remaining survivors should be. They try knocking on the door, asking if there's anyone inside, to which they hear joyful exclamations from their friends in response. The door opens, and they see the teacher's bloody stained face in front of them, which plunges them into shock. Shauna claims that when they left, there were more than 20 students and teachers here. And where did some of them disappear to? The girl pushes the teacher aside, saying she herself wants to see what happened while they were not around. Shauna's face freezes from the horror she sees, which cannot be compared in abomination to any zombie virus. They see before them the gnarled bones of their friends, as well as a handful of survivors eating the last pieces of human flesh. Weirdo tries to hold back the urge to vomit, saying it's just disgusting to eat your own kind. The teacher, standing next to the girl, begins to rejoice, saying they will no longer have to live like this, and that they will be able to get them out of here. Fury fills Shauna, after which she strikes with a lightning-quick kick right in the teacher's face. The man doesn't understand what's happening. He tries to get up to recover after the blow, asking what she's doing. Shauna covers her face with her hand, saying Edward was right and that all these people are just a bunch of worthless parasites. She explains they could provide for themselves, but instead of searching for food, they chose to eat their comrades alive. Shauna says the weak cannot be blamed for seeking protection, but if their weakness wants to justify eating their friends, then they are much worse than zombies. The girl turns around and leaves, saying she's not going to help such scum, and now they're on their own. All survivors present begin blaming Shauna for this state of affairs and scream, rushing at her with the desire to kill her without the slightest shadow of doubt. The girl swings her katana, cutting off the head of one attacker. Chapter 19. Meanwhile, Edward and Bella continue exploring the school premises in search of a mutated zombie. They stumble upon another classroom littered with mountains of corpses, finding no signs of mutated ones. Trying to verify his assumptions, Edward pays attention to Bella's reflexes, which don't foretell any danger. Finding no evidence of danger, they decide to go to other school buildings and check the mutant zombie's location. Meanwhile, the headless body of one attacker falls to the ground with a roar, shocking the cannibals. Shauna turns to the offender, and on her face there's rage and a desire to tear these non-entities into small pieces. All those survivors whom our hero came to save immediately begin running away in the opposite direction. Shauna isn't going to let any of them go because she has finally decided to put an end to these vile creatures. One teacher bows, begging for mercy and asking not to kill him because he will do whatever she wants. The girl doesn't agree, suggesting that apparently he heard the same thing from those people whom they killed and ate. The teacher raises his head, trying to justify his actions, and at that very second, Shauna's katana cuts off his head. At this moment, the girl is caught up by her classmates who have accompanied her all this time. They see Shauna's imperturbable figure in front of them, as well as her clothes completely bloodied on her face and a katana in her hand. Weirdo runs up to her, trying to bring her to her senses, realizing the girl is in an unconscious position. At that moment, one of the mutated zombies appears behind them and manages to kill one of their classmates. Everyone present begins running away in panic, trying to save their lives, trying to catch up and tear apart one of the children. The zombie decides to attack the backs of the defenseless and motionless Shauna. The guy with glasses manages to notice this and understands they can't survive without her and decides to commit another vile act. He grabs one of his classmates and pushes him toward the zombies, again drawing attention away from Shauna. The mutant is distracted by the body of an innocent guy and begins gnawing his neck, causing drops of blood to fall on Shauna's face. This brings the girl to her senses, as she manages to react and pierce the zombie with her katana. Chapter 20. Everyone present stands around the body of their dead classmate, deciding what to do next. The girl, who has experienced incredible stress after everything that happened, says they cannot hesitate and need to move forward. All this time, they were watched from afar by Jacob, who is clearly here to take revenge. He decides to attack on the sly and grab Shauna, to which she manages to react but is unable to defend herself. Jacob's physical abilities have clearly increased after mutation, and he manages to make a powerful blow that opens the girl's body. He stands in front of the girl, who is trying to catch her breath and gather her strength, saying they have met again. Jacob takes Shauna on his shoulder and tries to take her with him, but Weirdo decides to stop him by stabbing him in the back. He manages to hit the green-haired guy in the chest, causing him to fall to his knees in pain. He turns around and tells him to tell Edward to come to the boys' dorm or Shauna won't live long. Weirdo starts shouting after him, but the guy with glasses tries to stop him, saying this will attract more zombies. The guy gets up from his knees and says they need to escape as soon as possible and find Edward, trying to find shelter from zombies. They run into one of the empty school classrooms, closing the door and trying to barricade it. The guy with glasses starts shaking Woody-IRDO. They say he doesn't know what to do next and that death awaits them all. He explains to his friend they don't have many options for further action, and they need to somehow get out and find Edward. Their safety is compromised as zombies begin breaking through the windows right in the room. Weirdo grabs one of the desks nearby, telling his friend they will need to run on his signal. He shouts they need to run, throwing the desk and his hands toward the crowd of infected. They begin clearing away rubble to open the door, but stumble upon an even larger crowd of zombies. One of the corpses rushes toward Weirdo with the desire to tear him into pieces, and he, in turn, thinks this is the last moment of his life. At that second, several lightning-fast swings of the dagger occur, and all zombies find themselves lying on the ground in front of them, with Edward standing calmly, holding his dagger in his hand. Weirdo is immensely happy at Lingji's appearance, thanking him for saving his life and the guy with glasses' life. Lingji tries analyzing the situation by looking around the room and asking why they were left alone and where Shanana is now. Chapter 21. Edward stands and listens to Weirdo's hysterical chatter, trying to figure out and compare what happened. He once again explains how they met their classmates and teachers and also that Jacob kidnapped Shanana. Standing in panic, he also says he should definitely come because otherwise he promised to kill her. It's also reported that Jacob managed to mutate and only Edward is strong enough to compete with him. Lingji understands the situation turned out exactly as he expected when they left him in that supermarket. He looks at Bella and understands that zombies can still have their own consciousness and character. Therefore, he needs to continue to evolve. Having collected his thoughts and thinking about a plan for further action, he wonders where Jacob went with Shanana. Weirdo, with lingering panic, replies that he will be in the boys' dormitory and offers to take them there. He tries to hurry everyone present and suggests going faster while Shanana is still safe. Everyone present, without wasting time, goes toward the men's dormitory, telling Michael not to laugh behind them. Going outside, our heroes notice a crowd of zombies eating the body of another unfortunate victim. Michael is afraid to go straight through the zombie crowd, among which there's a mutated one, and suggests taking a detour. Edward notes that zombies can evolve by eating bodies of people or zombies, which means over time there will only be more of them. While our heroes are in thought, one of the corpse eaters notices them, and the entire crowd rushes into a fight with the survivors. Edward looks at Bella, nodding approvingly in her direction, realizing they can easily deal with this bunch of zombies. Michael, meanwhile, squats down and shakes with fear, repeating the same phrase that it was better for them to take a detour. Meanwhile, Ling Ji, gracefully wielding his dagger with Bella's help, deals with his enemies. Weirdo rejoices and turns out to be very inspired, realizing everything will be fine with them. In panic, Michael manages to notice he doesn't see a mutant zombie who has disappeared somewhere. Everyone present, including Edward, freezes in absolute silence, awaiting the mutated one's attack. From the side of a nearby tree, a mutant zombie makes a sharp jerk toward Ling Jie. His attempts to attack using the surprise effect are broken by a powerful blow from Bella, who slams his head into a tree trunk. Watching everything that happens, Weirdo thinks to himself that Jacob will pay for everything he has done. Having reached the men's dormitory building, Edward examines the fresh blood on the floor and walls. Weirdo reports this is definitely Jacob's blood because he was smeared with it from head to toe. Our heroes see a trail of blood going up the stairs, saying they can easily find him by going in that direction. Edward and his Kibi move ahead, and Weirdo tries to hurry up the lagging and out-of-breath Michael. Ultimately, following bloody stains on the floor, they find themselves on one of the men's dormitory floors. At the corridor's end, they see the silhouette of a man with shiny red eyes, who says he has been waiting for them for a long time. Chapter 22. Lingji understands that standing in front of him is none other than Jacob, whose appearance makes it clear he's no longer human. The mutant's face clearly shows a nasty grin and complete self-confidence that he will get the drivers out of this situation. Jacob scratches his festering and bleeding wounds, blaming Edward for the fact that it's his fault he became this way. Meanwhile, Weirdo manages to catch up with Ling Ji while running, wondering where Jacob is. A moment later, he notices the disfigured face and body of his classmate with horror, not understanding what happened to him. The mutated one tears his skin, from which pus begins to come out, once again accusing his friends that they're to blame for what happened. He points his finger at Edward and says that if they hadn't let this man in, they would have just returned to school, and he wouldn't have turned into a zombie. Lingji analyzes that ordinary people turn into zombies after infection, but something strange happens to Jacob, and he's clearly different from them. It seems his body cannot withstand the defeat of pure virus from a mutated zombie and begins to rot. Jacob points to his hand, saying it was all Edward's fault and he could have helped him but didn't. Lingji, with obvious dissatisfaction and anger, doesn't understand why he got the idea that everyone should take care of him and help him. He doesn't want to conduct a dialogue, asking the only question that interests him, where Shanana is now and in what condition she is, and that they should go and find her.